All right, we're back with another edition of the Direct Selling Superstar series, chopping it up with ... And the ... this week is Hilde Rismyhr Saele, who is an amazing leader in our profession for a long, long time now. And for you guys who saw the show 2 episodes ago, the better other half of Orion Saele. And Hilde, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Randy. I really have to say that it's an honor for me to do this conversation with you. You know, I got started with direct sales about now 22 years ago, and I met you when I was 20 years old. And I remember it was probably about like 6 months into my journey. I had just started to date Orion actually at the time, and he was talking about this rock star from US that he was paying like a crazy sum of money to get over to Norway to do this special training for the team, and I was so excited. And I don't think that I've told you this before, but that weekend at the Plaza Hotel in Oslo, and obviously also the week after and the event after, it truly made a huge impact on my decision to do this profession as a professional, I would say. And obviously over the years, Orion and I have had the pleasure to have you as one of our mentors and also our dear friends. But I think that this thing with, you know, meeting so long ago, and we're like 22 years ago, it just exemplifies the power of influence, because you never really know who you're going to meet along the way, and if what you do is really going to truly matter for someone. And I'm really, really grateful for everything that you've done for Orion and I, and to have you in our life.
I'm so grateful to have you guys in my life as well. You know, I was thinking the other day of the people who are close to me. Right? I have politics. So, you know, I have hobbies, interests, passions. Politics is one. Softball is one. Fitness and wellness, our profession of leverage sales. And I was just thinking how many of my friends, the people I'm close to, are all in leverage sales. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's because I have a myopic focus on the business. I think it's because everybody in the profession is so involved in personal and professional development that's why we've attracted each other, because we have this shared passion for learning.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you saw the show, I think it was Gamio who asked me, like, and how, you know, is it hard to find a relationship with somebody at your, you know, intellectual level? Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, you had to go there. It's so, you know, there's so many people whose lives are built around what's going to be streamed on Netflix next, and what's the, you know, virtue signaling trend of the day on social media, and the polarizing issue to debate and hate other people and demonize them about. And I just think of, you know, of the people that the people I'm going to dinner with, they're in this business because we talk about the latest self-development book. We're talking about some podcast that really affected us. We're talking about some new sleep study, or some new diet study, or some new wellness study, or some new mental health study. And, you know, so it's been wonderful having you guys in my life all these years as well.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm excited about this today, Randy. I have no idea what we're going to talk about, but that's probably the excitement about it all.
It's, you know, it was risky, I think, to do this for a couple of reasons. the inspiration was these shows that Tim Ferriss does with his BFF Kevin Rose, and they call him the Random Show. And a couple times a year they do that, and they just each bring a list of, hey, what do you want to talk about? Mm-hmm. And they're really good friends, and they know each other inside and out. And so it works brilliantly. They have shared interest, and then they have other things that are unique to them, and it creates a great conversation. And for the idea for me to do it each week with somebody new is a different. And the big thing, of course, is this is really for thinking people. The hottest things in marketing, social media, communication is short, pithy, bumper sticker philosophy, don't go into depth. And I thought, no, I want to show where if I ask the guest something really intriguing and they want to talk about it for 20 minutes without interruption, I want to hear that 20 minutes, because these are people who are brilliant. And that's we've got lots of stuff, there's lots of Instagram reels and YouTube shorts of clever sayings, Henry Ford, believe you can, believe you can't. Either way, you're right. There's no I in team, teamwork makes the dream work. Okay, we got enough of those. What about the real world stuff, that really, and some of these topics that we have descended into, as I don't know if you were eavesdropping in on Orion's interview with me yet, because that isn't posted yet at the time
Actually, I haven't, but I heard that it was a very interesting conversation. You were sharing about critical thinking, I heard.
Yeah, it was really fascinating. And like a lot of the shows, I've got another one with Jeff Higginson, which will be up by the time people are watching this, but it's not up now, where we're just talking about some topics that are really controversial. And I know there's going to be people who will, like Orion and I were talking about COVID-19 and vaccine hesitancy and the masks debate and how critical thinking comes into play with that. And I know there's just going to be knee-jerk people who are going to say, that guy disagrees with me about masks, forget it, I'm never going to watch that show again. Or that lady disagrees with me about vaccines, I'm never going to watch that show again. And I'm okay with that. I feel like this is, there's the stuff that panders to what people want to believe. It's all out there. That's not, I don't want to contribute more to that. If I want people to watch these shows, and they are, my DMs, I have more response to this show than anything I've done in the last 15 years, I think, just of the people, the people I really respect, the ones who are in my DMs are like, dude, oh my God, I watched that show with Ann Feinstein, or I watched that show with Daniel Song. Oh, when you started talking about how the comp plan choke points are, or when you guys talked about the sexism in our business, or when there's just a really voracious demand for that, because again, this is for the thinking people. And so I'm delighted with it. So it was a risk, but I can tell it wasn't a risk at all. I thought it was a risk, but I can tell by the demand, the long tail on these episodes is going to be incredible. People will be watching these for 10 years from now, and they'll be saying, they're already saying, this is the PhD program for how to be an extraordinary world-class leader. This is the PhD program for how to lead a movement of positive people, because it's the stuff you can't teach in college. It's the stuff you can't even write in a book, I don't think. And you know me, I'm an author at heart. That's my preferred medium. But I think the iron sharpens iron, and getting people like you and the other people who have done these with me it's been amazing. So
Yeah,
thanks for being
I
on.
think that it's very interesting, and it's it's I usually say that there is always a science side of things and there is an art side of things, and obviously the science is very easily thought, or it's like facts. It's very specifics. It's like, for instance, if you're gonna learn how to paint a painting, you know that if you mix yellow and blue, you get green, right? But the art is very different when you do certain things, right? So if you're not really having the hours and hours and hours of practice, if I tell you to paint leaves with different greens that are like flying in the wind, that's totally different than the science. And I think that sometimes through having those in-depth conversations, you get a little bit of more in-depth knowledge about the art and the multiple hours of experience from the people that you speak with.
So how's you, I kind of think an interesting place to start is just what are your feelings about the profession right now? How do you think it's doing? So how do you feel about what's happening in the space now and what you think is going to happen in the future? What's your outlook right now?
Well, first of all, I would say that I'm positive. I do believe that our business is counter-cyclical towards the economy. So obviously things is not necessarily looking so positive in the world today, but that's a benefit for our business. Honestly, I don't pay that much attention to all of the different things going on with all kinds of companies out there. My focus is really on what we are doing and how we can grow and how we can develop. But obviously, I do see that there is several companies, unfortunately, that are struggling very, very much within our profession today. And we both hear about it, and in the position that we are, we also talk with some of them. But in general, I think that looking at the world in general or at this point, I think that it's an opportunity for us that things is not necessarily so bright, because it attracts higher potentials, higher quality people to our business. I think that COVID was a very challenging time for a lot of people. Also outside of our profession, and a lot of people that felt that they were working with something that was very safe, obviously realized during that time that it wasn't so safe. So a lot of people are looking for multiple streams of income and really have a different perspective, I think, today of what they need to do for their future to really ensure that they're financially fit if a new crazy thing will hit. So I think that in general, very positive towards what we can create at this point.
Yeah, and just for context for people who watch this later, we're recording on March 21, 2023. And as of this morning, which is a Tuesday, and which was the day after we wondered, would there be a bank run in the United States? And now it's a Tuesday morning, and it's early here in Miami, and the banks haven't opened yet, but I've got already a stream of like distressing, anxious threads in my WhatsApp and Telegram and Signal chats from people. It's a really sketchy situation right now. And it's one of the things we've been saying for years is, come on, regulators, if you're really interested in shutting down Ponzi schemes, please go shut down the government, because the government is the worst Ponzi scheme in the history of the world. You know, here in the United States, we call it the Social Security Administration, which is the retirement fund. So they they tax your paycheck every week, and they take the money out, and they say, and then we're going to give it to you when you turn 65 or 67. They keep raising the age up. By the time I get there, it'll probably be 95. And, and then we'll give you your money back month by month. And of course, it's a horrific Ponzi scheme, because all the baby boomers or most of them are drawing out their income now, and there's not enough new people coming into the pyramid at the bottom. So of course, it's a huge deficit. And the banking system is based on national currencies. So like here, the banking system is based on the US dollar, which is based on literally nothing. It's based on air ever since, I think it was probably 71 or 72 when President Nixon took the dollar off the gold exchange standard. And so banks are basing their balance sheets on a currency which is based on air. And when you have a world like today where people can get on social media and say, the SVB Bank, Silicon Valley Bank, which is kind of the impetus for the drama and trauma here in the US right now, that was pretty much a social media creation. Somebody put on and said, I'm a little worried about the balance here. And, somehow it got its way to Peter Thiel, who's a big venture capital guy. And he just told all his companies, hey, get your money out of that bank. So everybody else in the tech space who were in the Telegram chats with each other heard that, and poof, the bank went from rock star to vaporized in basically a weekend. Mm-hmm. And now we're just recognizing with the Credit Suisse and the situation over there and some other big banks over here, it's crazy. So
shaky world.
It's a very shaky world. And our profession has always done better when the world is shaky, mm-hmm. as you say, counter-cyclical, because when the economy is booming, people aren't as hungry. I don't think they're looking at other options. When the economy's booming, everybody just thinks it's always going to be booming. There's so many guys and gals alive today who, maybe they were born in 2008, but they might have been 3 years old or 4 years old or something. And all they've known is boom times. All they've known is growing economy, and they have no idea. But, you talk about the Great Recession. That's like talking about the Roman Empire to them, because that's so far removed from their reality. People don't understand that. Yeah, there really can be worldwide economic meltdowns. And frankly, I believe we're already in the middle one. I still see stuff like, is there a recession coming? And I'm like, that's like a fish swimming around asking where the water is. I think we're in a recession already right now. And I think, and it's not like we want to be tap dancing on anybody's grave, but we have to be prudent business people. We have to be prudent entrepreneurs and recognize that people who 6 months ago would have never considered our profession because they thought their profession was so safe and secure. Now we'll be looking at our profession because if you're in retail, cruise industry, event industry, airline industry, travel industry, I mean, your world has been so rocked. The tech space, the layoffs, another 9,000 from Amazon announced yesterday. So
crazy. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I constantly remind the different people that we work with, as well as obviously also reminding myself about that everything is in the follow-up, because timing is changing for everyone from 1 month to the next. It can be a totally different game. And this is really a huge opportunity because we are offering a solution. So I think that we should all really embrace that opportunity and move on it.
How are you getting that message across there? Let me adjust my blind. The sun is coming up in Miami and it's cloudy, and I'm trying to get the light right for the people in the YouTube world. How are you conveying that urgency to your team? What are you doing? What are you telling them to wake them up to the opportunity that is desperately trying to slap them in the face right now?
Well, you know us, Randy, you know that our message for many, many years has been customers first. Customers first. Like I remember vividly back in 2007, Orion and I, we had one of our late conversations around our kitchen table where we were quite frustrated because we felt that things wasn't necessarily moving in our business as fast as we really wanted it to move. And
which by the way, for anyone watching, is because their business is moving 80 times faster than anyone else, and they're extremely frustrated with how slow it's going from their perspective.
No, but anyway, you know, I remember this, and we were frustrated. It wasn't necessarily moving so fast, but it's a little embarrassing to tell, but we were like talking, was it our products? Was it the people that we had hired in our office? Was it our leaders? And it took us really an hour to realize that when you're pointing your finger at someone else, there is always three fingers pointing back at you, right? So we were the problem. So what we were frustrated about back then was really the customer growth, right? And we started our company because one of the reasons we started was because we wanted to be a company that was leading with customers first. That was going to be our message. But we realized at that point, that we weren't necessarily leading as good as we could ourselves. And from there on, you know, we decided, okay, so we are the one that needs to change. And the next 30 days, we went all in and we got, 25 personal customers each. We continued to spread that message, got a lot of resistance at first, but then we continued to grow their customer base, and people were really focused on customers first. So that's been our core message all these years. But then I know that, or what I can say, what specifically to your question now, is that we are in a transition phase where today our customer ratio is like 25-1, customer to partners. So what we've been focusing on to really create that urgency now is that now the time is now to really change focus, to highly go out massively, being in recruiting mode. So actually during the past 3 months, we have been really working at our system, simplifying our system, going into the depth of the whole pipeline to really teach people how do we do that at a different ball game, because this is really a good time. And that's also one of the things that we see, is that it comes from us, right? Everything is what we focus on, the team is focusing on. So that's really, I would say, the most important thing, that we've been changing a little bit of that focus during this time. Obviously not forgetting about the customers. The customers is still going to be there. That's going to be a major part, and that's obviously what's going to make sure that our business is booming long term. But we have to get into action mode of bringing in more high quality people. So I would say that's the message that we are currently, as we speak, driving to the team.
Yeah, you didn't see it yet, but Ori and I were discussing that on the show we did together, because for people who don't know, I've been consulting with you guys off and on since literally even before this company was founded. And I was just there, I guess, was it November when I was there? December, somewhere recently. And that was kind of the focus when we were planning the event, was, hey, the theme we got to get out to people is, you're doing an incredible job with customers, really. And you guys are, you guys and Wes Linden over at, and the people at Utility Warehouse, I hold you guys in Zeno and Utility Warehouse as like the shining beacons of examples of how to do an amazing customer culture. Because as you say, you literally have a 25-to-1 ratio right now. But our event there was, hey, we've got, because that's, if you remember, the
summer, we have to get people out from the Zoom coma, right? I remember you spoke about that. I don't remember in which interview or conversation you were talking about that. But I think that a lot of people have been a little bit hiding behind the camera. And obviously, I think that everyone within our profession has really had to transform a little bit how they worked during these past years. And it's been positive. It's enabled us to really reach out to more people globally. But again, you can't really underestimate the power of those physical meetings and really sitting. It's like you can recruit online. Obviously, we're doing it every single day, but it's like when you sit down with someone and you're having those conversations, it just creates a different impact on both yourself as well as the person that you're speaking with.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts jump out when you say that. So I don't remember the year or the city, but you and Orion and I were having dinner in the hotel wherever the mastermind event was. And Orion said to me, my goal is that one day we will have 1 million customers who don't even know we're an MLM company. Mm-hmm. And as we were setting up for this event that I was coming to train the team in November, I remember we were having the conversation because you guys were just about to break 500,000 customers, 500,000, which is such an incredible accomplishment. And then I kind of got in your guys' grill a little and said, listen, with that many customers, you need to be doing another $200 million a year. Okay, there are people, there are CEOs all over our profession. They would trade their mother to have 500,000 customers. But some of them are doing more than you guys because they have the recruiting down. And we talked about your tools and system and the candidate pathway and how we could do that. And that was kind of the process we set up to start in that November event, which you guys are proceeding along and doing pretty good from what Orion tells me lately. But I feel like even for field leaders, one of the things they have to figure out is what is the optimal ratio between distributors and customers. And they have to understand that it's different for every company.
True.
If you're a, Zango, any one of those one product, juice, berry company, if you got one product, that's going to be a very different dynamic than if you're Amway or Shackley and you got 400 products, right? It's going to be relative to your comp plan. What do people need in terms of volume, group volume, average volume to access the optimal natures of the comp plan? You got to keep the balance there. You have to have more customers than you have distributors, or you're going to get shut down. It's just a reality of the world today. You can't do the business the way we did it in the 80s and 90s. It just won't fly anymore. Even though I know there's some third world countries and second world countries that people like, my country doesn't care. Yeah, but that's going away. At some point, people follow the regulators in the United States because this was kind of the mecca for where the business started. And so Europe and Asia and LATAM, they follow what's happening in the judicial system here, and they usually mirror it. But even as leaders, because there's things, if you're a top field leader, there's things you don't control. The company sets the compensation plan. The company's going to decide what the product line is and how it gets extended. You don't get, you may even have a say in that, but you don't get the final decision. But your job when you got 25,000 distributors or 75,000 distributors is, okay, what's the culture that I'm going to set? Much like you and Orion were sitting at the table and say, hey, you know what? We're going to each go out and get 25 customers. We're going to change this culture. That's what every leader in our space has to be looking at right now and saying, okay, what is the optimal ratio? If I really took an hour, scheduled thinking time, thought about what is our comp plan look like? What do you need to access the highest levels? How broad is our product line? What's the average consumption in terms of use? Like for a distributor, if you have just a fiber cookie company or a weight loss shake company, and that's your only product, there's going to be a certain average volume that a family of 4 can use on a month. If you have a protein shake and a protein bar and vitamin minerals and antioxidant and probiotic and weight loss thing and this and that, and you got 18 products, okay, there's a whole different dynamic. Again, what could, because same, if you're in a Melaleuca or a Shackley or somebody with a lot of home house care products, you have this transfer buying element. Like, hey, if you're in Melaleuca, right, is like, are you telling me you're going to go to the supermarket and buy Zest soap instead of using Melaleuca soap? You're going to go to the supermarket and buy Dawn dishwashing. You're going to buy a brand X product instead of one of your company products. If you're in Arbonne or, Rodin and Fields with all the skincare and all the cosmetic, you would be crazy, right? So there's transfer buying.
And I agree to all of that. And I agree that obviously there is different customer ratios probably compared to comp plan and company and products and all of that. But what I think is very important is that as leaders of your team, it's your job to really educate people to build a healthy business. And even though obviously we promote internal consumption, I do believe that when we're really talking about customers, it has to be external customers, because that is really what's going to create your foundation long term. And I think that obviously I don't have the answer to all of that, but I think that it at least probably should be a 10-to-1 ratio. You have to have a lot more customers, and not necessarily like the law in most countries are, for instance, here in Europe, where you say that 50% of the consumption should come outside of the organization. I think that is way too low. I think that to really build a healthy, thriving business, you have to really upper the game there. And we are actually ourselves as leaders a little bit to blame for the rumors of our profession. I think that we should do something about that. That is extraordinarily important. And that's at least one of Orion and my main mission when it comes to this profession, because it's an incredible profession when you build it in a healthy way.
I actually would be 100% agreement with you on the minimum is 10. That's really what I've done in my team for the last 15 years. And people who read my direct selling success book or any of the trainings I'm doing, saying, I've been really promoting this idea of doing a grand opening and getting 10 customers as quickly as possible. And that was just something that happened on my team 15 years ago. I had two big lines in Europe who that's what they did. And it created such an extraordinary result. So we integrated it into the team-wide system, and it produced such an amazing result around the world. And I do think, because the legal standard in this moment, like for the United States, is 50% plus one. If the regulators were going to a judge and trying to say you were a pyramid scheme, that it was a closed buying system, the defense you'd have to maintain is, hey, we have 100,000 team members, we have 100,001 customers, we're legit. And that's pretty much the legal standard of case law at the moment. But I agree with you 100%. It's a terrible metric. It really should be at least a 10-1. And then there are places like the West Linden show, which will be up by the time people are watching this. They're a utilities company, so they have all kind of people who have 80, 100, 200, 300 customers. And it's a healthy business, and that 10-1 model is really, as a floor, I think it's the gold standard to take. The other thing, though, I was thinking about what you said was, a lot of people know I'm creating a media company with Jaime Loquier. This channel is the Duplication Nation YouTube channel, right? And you guys watching, if you didn't subscribe, get down there and click the button. And it's also on podcasts now too. So we've created this duplicationnation.com site, and we're doing events like we've always done, but we're kind of doing them together now. And we have an event taking place in November in Latam. Well, I think it's November, so don't quote me on that. But anyway, we've got this new big event coming up. Cumbre. Right now, Jaime's been doing this event for many years called Cumbre de Líderes, which is Leader Summit. So we're going to expand it, go crazy with it. I'm part of it. We're doing it together now under the Duplication Nation. And we're calling it Cumbre Palooza, Cumbre Palooza, right? And we're just going to go crazy. And we were just kind of sketching it out last week. And what are we going to charge for the streaming tickets? And what are we going to charge for the in place one and the VIP? And I said, Jaime, I have a really crazy idea. I don't want to live stream it. I want to create an event. You have to come to the event. And there will be no live stream whatsoever because of the experiences we can create live. Yes, the networking is incredible. Yes, the mastermind is incredible, but there's also some element of the physical room. Like we have this I don't want to give away this secret, but we're going to create an entrance that it's going to be like a carnival fun house mirror that you got to go through to get into the event, just to it's something I've been toying with my tribal event, which I do for influencers every year. Just something that they know when you come out of that outside world and you go into this convention hall, you have entered a new realm. And I know we're already, again, because we announced it last weekend, we had the Cumbre event in Guadalajara just 2 days before you and I are recording this. And people are like, what do you mean you aren't doing the live stream? We don't have money to go with the plane ticket. I can't get it. I'm like, I understand that. We'll do plenty of live stream events. You will have options for that. But this particular event, it's like my tribal event. Same thing. I streamed it for a couple of years and I just said, no, you know what? There's something that happens, some electricity in the room, the creative energy. You can't get that in a Zoom room. You just can't.
I totally agree. I have so many events that I've been attending over the years that I know if I was looking at them like online, it definitely wouldn't be the same. For many years, actually from 2002 to 2013, Orion and I, we went to an event outside actually of our profession called the Increase event, hosted by Bob Harrison at Hawaii. every year. And you talking about this entrance, it really reminds me a little bit about that event, because every year there was a different theme. It was an event that was talking about increased principles from the Bible, actually teaching from the Bible, but combining that with business. And I just every single time when we got there, sitting down in that room and in that different environment, I think that changing that environment, that was like critical. It just ignited our fire. And I think that some things you can't really communicate online. You can get a feel for it, but it's just the energy, the passion, and the belief that you get when you're in that chair, in that room. It's just something outside that you can't create online.
There's magic. Even the tribal event, I tried to, it was kind of easier in the low tech age, because I would take people to Fiji or Tahiti, Costa Rica, and the broadband was terrible. It was impossible. Like when I first took my group to Fiji, you would have to go to the office of the hotel, to their like community computer. You would pay $5 a minute to get online. So you'd go into online, you'd go to Outlook, you'd download all your messages. So that would cost you $15. Then you would log off. Then you would go and, answer all the emails. And then you'd go back and log on for $5 a minute again and send them. Because if you just stayed on, it would, you'd be spending $300 a day to, be on email. And I loved that aspect because it got people out of their routines. They couldn't, they weren't sitting with their cell phone getting alerts and signal messages and emails, and their family back home was asleep. There was no babysitter calling. There was no dog walker calling. There was no issues coming up because it was 4 a.m. back where they were from. So they were totally out of their environment. And I still, to this day, Jeff Higginson and I talked about this in the show we did together, the annual leadership retreats that we both believe in so much for leaders, to get them out of their routine and recognize them for their accomplishments, but at the same time, have a chance to give them some high level training. I know you're huge on events. You guys do an incredible job with events. Well, you want to talk about that a little, how you guys work with events?
Well, I think that everyone in our profession know that events work because it gives people a bigger picture of what this opportunity can give them. And I think that one of the problems I see for a lot of people is that we have a lot of training on bringing in customers. We have a lot of training on bringing in distributors, but we don't necessarily have that much training on actually selling tickets and moving people, from event to event. And people don't necessarily have a strategy either for what do you do prior to an event and what do you do after an event. And that's been one of the things that we've been focusing a lot on, because I really do believe that you're missing out some major growth if you forget that part of our business. I do know for myself that I probably wouldn't be here having this conversation with you today if I didn't attend my first event. I remember my first event. I got probably similar to a lot of others, a phone call from an upline saying you just have to be there. And it was like 2 days after, and I met like 9:30, standing there waiting for the bus that was going to take us to the venue. And I remember, coming into this big room and all of these people and the keynote speaker, and everything was just crazy, like amazing. But then what really caught me, and I think this is obviously different from people to or person to person, what you bring out of it. Sometimes it's a talk, sometimes it's a conversation with someone in the hallway. For me, it was actually the recognition. And I remember at my first event, there was a lot of people coming up to this level that they call the diamond recognition. And then people were having the mic, and sharing their stories. And at one point, there was a lady, and she basically, Randy, looked like she was my grandma. She was like so old, and obviously I was 20 at the time. Curly, short, blonde hair, a little funny looking clothes, strange dialect. But when she spoke, I thought to myself, if she can do this, I think I can do this, right? And at the time, this level was earning about 5,000 euros or so a month, which was in my eyes the dream income, right? But I thought that it actually brought some belief in that I could do this. And, from there on, I really understood this would be a major thing for us, or for me, because I was building my own position at that time. To really grow my business, I had to bring people to events. And then I can move on, to, for instance, the mastermind event. The first time when I entered that room, I think it was in 2002. Maybe you remember the year better than I. No, but I didn't know what to expect. But I knew you were going to be there. I knew that Art was obviously going to be there. Tom Schreider was going to be there. Michael Kloss, Lisa Jimenez, all of these people. But as I sat down in that room and I started to listen to all of these incredible speakers, I just understood this is what I'm going to do. And I think that this is what people have to understand. It's like when you get someone started, that's their decision to kind of test out the business. You haven't really gotten their commitment yet. They're just getting started. They're kind of like feeling the product. They're feeling the business opportunity. They're trying to get to know people, finding out if they like this or not. But then you get them maybe a little bit more intrigued after they get some results on the product, or they get some results in the business. So maybe they now look at this as a hobby. But to really get people from doing this as a hobby and not necessarily still having their commitment to actually deciding that I'm actually going to do this part-time. I'm committing to do this 10 to 15 hours a week. Sometimes you need more. And I do believe that the events is a great bridge to actually getting people to understand this is something that can actually make a difference to me. So that's one of the things that we really do highlight. And I think that obviously probably a lot of people are, but to understand that that's actually where the commitment very often is created, and that second decision or that reconfirmation of decision is coming in, is really important to develop that commitment.
If people only knew, once you have a big enough team, you can really track it. You look at the key metrics of your organization, and 60 to 90 days after events, the rank advancements just are popping because of the belief that happened during that event. That's I call it getting them over the line. It's past that tipping point that turned, just for everybody who's read the First Circle, making the First Circle workbook, I'm ranting and raving about it all the time, turning hope into belief. And that's what happens at major events. And for me, my first major event was a convention. I had been in the business for 6 years or so. Most everybody knows I scuffled for 5 years, never made any money. Then I kind of started to figure out I needed to have a system. I needed to do this in a way that people could replicate my results. So I started to have some results. And then my company was having a convention, and it was put up or shut up time, where my sponsor was saying, you can't tell me you're a leader if you're not coming to the convention. You say you have these dreams, you've set these goals, you've made this commitment, yet you're not coming to this event. What's the deal? And I was still so struggling financially because I'd come, into the business in miserable financial shape. And then I struggled for 5 years going into debt to do the business. So it was the idea. I was in Miami and the convention was in Anaheim, California. And one of the things I wanted to do was I had always dreamed of becoming a writer. So one of the things I had done on the side is I had become a freelance writer. So I had this idea, like, hey, if I can find a hotel and if I can find a travel magazine that wants a feature about Anaheim, which is where Disneyland is, so they would probably like that story, then I can go to a hotel and say, hey, I'm a travel writer. I'll be doing a feature about Anaheim. Would you comp me the room? And I found a hotel who comped me the room. And I wrote American Airlines and said, here's the letter from my editor. I'm writing a travel thing. So they gave me a plane ticket. So I got the plane ticket for free and the hotel for free, using my creativity, which, but still was like, as soon as I got there, I found a supermarket and got a loaf of bread and some mayonnaise and a pack of cheese slices. And I was eating cheese sandwiches the whole 3 days I was there, The place was like, 3/4 of a mile or a mile from the convention center. I didn't have money for the taxi. I walked there in the sun, in the California sun, and going home at night. But there were 2,000 people there. Mm-hmm. I had never experienced anything like that. There were 2,000 people chanting and clapping and cheering and crying and basically swinging from the chandeliers. I just had never experienced energy like that. That was for the crowd, right? I had gone to the University of Wisconsin Badger football games, and they were terrible in those years, right? But still, the crowd was cheering on the team because you had all the students cheering the athletes, right? But this was like a convention, but the star wasn't there. There weren't like players on the field who were the stars. The people in the auditorium were the stars. And I was one of those people. So I was like, by osmosis, I had 2,000 people cheering for me the way I used to cheer on the football players. That transformed my life. I would have never made it to the level I've made it if I didn't go to that event.
Yeah, I think that it's so belief building. And one of the things that I also see sometimes people are missing out on when it comes to events is how do you use it? It's like you say, 80% usually comes, of the results, I think it was 80% usually comes out of the events. We usually say that 80% of our time is spent on the basics, right? The what part of the business, the meetings with customers and partners and following throughs and so forth. About 15% is probably spent on the education part, where you get people started, the team meetings and the different in-depth training, the competence building trainings on how to do the basics. But then the white part around the events, 80% or 5% of the time is spent there, but usually 80% is coming from there. But again, if you don't have a strategy in and out from the event, it's difficult to get those rank advancements 60 days after, or 30 days after, or even 120 days after. So one of the things that we focus a lot on is that you have to use the events first and foremost as a deadline. What's going to be your rank? What's going to be your goal that you're aiming for when you go there? Now, how do you build from one event to the next event? What's your goal in terms of number of tickets sold? If you're one person attending your last event, obviously, like, what's going to be the next one? If you can just bring 2, right, you're 3. But if you work then according to the process of, let's say, 5 events, or let's say 6 events during a year. You go from 3, if everyone is bringing 2, suddenly you're up to 9, suddenly you're up to 27, suddenly you're over 80, right? And that continues from there if you just have that focus. And I think that having a system for that and teaching, how do you announce the events? How do you explain what is going to happen? How do you promote it so that people actually understand? You and I, Randy, like when we got started, how did it was the energy that sold us on actually deciding that we wanted to invest the money, and for you to be so creative to do all of these things, you know, to manage financially to actually go there, right? And how do you then sell it? So that process of duplication and training, I think, is essential, because if you don't do that, well, first and foremost, people don't show. But then secondly, also, how do you do the work after the event, and how do you specifically throughout the duplication of the team make sure that everyone then have a new strategy for instance, the next deadline, the next event that is coming up?
100%. And you guys, I just love even that first event when you guys brought me was like 7,000 people or something. And you had a private fireworks show for the event. And, but you guys from the very beginning said, we're going to create this culture of celebration and fun and fellowship. And to this day, when I think of, so I was there in November.
Actually, it was during the summer, Randy. Time flies, huh?
Was it that? Yeah, really? Okay. Yeah. So, and sounds like I'm going to be back with you guys in December after a conversation Orion had with me the other day.
Hope so.
And I can say what's extraordinary to me will be the number of top leaders who I will be meeting with in December 2023, who I met 20 years ago at your first event, because you created such a culture of celebrate where people feel they're celebrated, not tolerated, where people feel a sense of community, to be part of a mission, a vision. I think that's one of the most extraordinary accomplishments you guys have done, is the retention that you have. I mean, I could name 25 names just off the tip of my head and say, yeah, I know he'll be there. I know she'll be there. I know he'll be there. I know they'll be there. Because they're there at every event, and they have been for 20 years now. How do you guys make that happen?
Well, I don't have necessarily a specific recipe for that, but I do believe that it's important in leadership development to see people. I think obviously we're born with 2 ears and 1 mouth, and it's important to find people's need and to help them fulfill, their ambitions. And I think that's probably one of our major focus, is to continue to help people in regards of guiding and coaching and helping people set those targets and work according to that plan, and step by step achieve, what they aspire to do from the first time. I think that we all know that this is not a quick fix, when you come into this profession. It always takes time. It always takes development. Myself, like, I didn't have any experience when I got started 20 years ago. I had never built a team. I had no leadership experience, and I was a total failure in the beginning. And I don't know if I've told you, but the first month that I started, I went all in. I had like 70 meetings. I got 63 people that said no, 7 people that signed the contract, but then 3 of them later that month returned their kit. So I
wait. We got to get these numbers down. So you presented to 70?
Yes, I was probably in contact with 150 my first month, but 70 people agreed to meet me.
Okay. And then how many signed up of the 70?
7.
And then of the 7, 3 canceled?
Returned their kits. So I was left with 4, right? And the first one quit, and the second one quit, and the third one quit, and the fourth one, well, she worked for a little while, and then she quit too, right? So I was not like an overnight success, but I think that one of the most important thing that really made the biggest impact, or the big, I was close to quitting myself, I can tell you that. Very, very close, but because of different things happening, I decided, okay, I'm going to give this at least 1 more year, right? But about 4 months in to my journey, I decided on this. I understood that if I was going to have any chance of succeeding with this profession, I had to make myself my most important project. And in relation to that, I was a law student at the time, so I was doing this on the side. So in relation to that, I committed myself to 2 things. I'm going to read 10 pages every day. And then I'm going to have 10 meetings every week. So I'm going to show the business, show the product to 10 people every single week. And I grew up in a family where my dad is a doctor and my mom is a nurse. And all throughout my childhood, I was used to them reading. So the studying part, it was kind of like ingrained in my family. You know, you have to study, you have to read to develop yourself. So I started that, and obviously you don't become smart. You know the slight edge philosophy, you don't become really smart after a month. But if you've been reading just 10 pages a day for a year, you've read 3,650 pages. And if you just continue that small little habit for 5 years, it's 18,250 pages. And if you continue that for 20 plus years, it becomes some pages, right? So you start to get to, you start to become a little bit more knowledgeable in the area that you're working with. But obviously it wouldn't happen, or I wouldn't be able to create the results if I didn't go out and produce the meetings. And I think that this is one of the things that a lot of people don't always understand, that small things over time, they really do make a big impact if you just give it time. And I think that everything comes down to your personal and your professional development. Obviously, we talked a little bit about that earlier, but I think it's important to define what is personal development. What does that really mean? And I believe that it's your character, it's your thinking process, it's how you develop over time your self-image, self-confidence, and very much belief in yourself that this is something that you can do. And then you have to combine that obviously with the specific, the professional development, everything that is related to this craft, which is obviously the knowledge about the product that you're working with, the comp plan, your company, the system, how do you build, how do you prospect, how do you invite, how do you open a presentation, close a presentation, how do you follow through, how do you develop events, how do you do all of these things that is important. And the only way to do that is not just by reading, it's by acting. But when you have those, when you commit to really those small things over time, crazy results can happen.
So if you're not comfortable, you don't have to answer this, but you sponsored 70 people, or you presented initially to 70 people, 7 signed up, 4 hung around, all 4 eventually quit. So your entire organization that exists today, there's not one single person who was there that you enrolled at the beginning.
Correct.
Are you willing to share like the size of your group right now, or the number, the volume produced by your group on a monthly basis, or just some kind of metric so people can see where that ended up?
Well, our company today is producing $150 million in sales, and we do business in I would say we ship products to 100 countries, but we're officially open in 45 countries. So we have about 22,000 partners, distributors that are working actively, and close to 500,000 customers. So it becomes something if you just stay the stay the distance.
You know what we have to do, of course, is we have to design a keynote for you. If I'm going to do this event in December with you guys, I think Hilde needs to do a keynote with the theme by the numbers, where we're taking people through 70 presentations, turns into 7 people. 3 quit right away. And then what it looked like after 6 months, and what it looked like after 2 years, and what it looked like after 10 years, and what it looks like today. I think that would be such an empowering, inspirational presentation for your team to see. Because all these years I've known you, I did not know that. I mean, this is really a big deal. The fact that, because I can say, I started over fresh when I had been out of the business. My company had gone out of business. I had all this psychic damage. I said I could never build again. And then I'm just being a trainer and a consultant. And I'm like, this is crazy. I'm going to places like Norway and Sweden for Hilde and Orion and training them on how to build residual income. They're doing this incredible residual income. I'm working with this company and that guy. So I'm helping all these million, because, you could bring the 60 Minutes camera crew into my thing, and I'll open up my file and say, okay, let's look in here. I will argue I've created more millionaires in this profession than any person alive. So I'm at this point where I'm saying, I'm creating all these millionaires with residual income, and I don't have residual income myself. I'm the shoemaker with no shoes. I've got to get back in the profession. So now, though, the problem is my whole world has been network marketing, because I'm training Sunrider people and Herbalife people and Zenzino people and New Skin and Old Skin and In Between Skin and Oriflame and Amway and Herbalife and, so it's like, I can't contact any of these people I'm talking to every day because they're my clients. This would be a conflict of interest. There'd be no integrity with that. So I got to start over, and I need to find people who are not in network marketing. So I talked to Billy, who I play softball with, and I talked to, Gail, who I go to church with, and I find all these people who have never been in the business, and I build a team of 200,000 people. But I can still go back and say, Billy was one of my first people, and Jeannie was one of my first people, and Wes was one of my people. For your story that none of them are still there, I think is the most incredible, because this is what people have to understand, is it doesn't have to be the people you know. You will know people who know people that you don't know. And sometimes that leader pops up as the person you sponsor, and sometimes it's somebody 27 levels deep.
Yeah, and I think that this is an important message for people to really get, that it's through a lot of people that you really sometimes get those high level contacts. And I think that a lot of people, when it comes to reaching those incredible goals, we talk a lot about just keep going, stay focused, have the endurance, have the persistence, and obviously all of those things, it's extraordinarily important. You have to stay the distance. But I think that the most important to actually, or not necessarily most important, it's in addition, you have to constantly ask yourself, where can I grow? how can I develop? Because obviously we have to be honest, or I have to be honest, and there was probably a reason why they didn't stay around, right? There was always some fingers pointing back at me, right? So, just thinking about it, I remember one time I was so excited when I finally got some traction going in my business. I had sponsored someone from the military, the army in Norway, super ambitious, very systematic. He was perfect person, right, to do this business. We got so much going on. And then like 6 months later, it was like magically disappearing. And again, why did it disappear? Because I probably at that time, I didn't have the competence. I didn't have the skills. And I think this is the crucial part, is that as we continue to develop, as you're walking up that mountain, as you're climbing to that goal that you have, what are those areas? What are your blind spots? Is it how you speak with people? Is it how you try to do everything for people and be the hero and not necessarily the leader? Do you take the spotlight yourself, or do you ensure that other people are shining around you? I think all of those things is critically important in the process. Finding those key things. Is it that you don't know how to enroll customers? Is it that you don't know how to really sponsor a partner or help that person, get a result within a short period of time? Really going into the depth, doing that checking and adjusting constantly, and maybe every week. That's, I think, one of the things that I've been applying for myself since basically I got started, is that every week I would ask myself, what did go well last week? What didn't go so well? How can I improve? And it's a small little exercise, but that 30 minutes of thinking and that brainstorming of paper has saved me from so much work. So on the journey, that is, I would say, critical, because if you're going to achieve those big goals, you have to change. And obviously people are scared of changing, but you have to constantly be on a journey where you are renewing yourself and developing a new you.
One of the things I have one of the points I want to talk to you about is personal. For people who don't know, I always call you Mamacita, because you're Mamacita. You're being a mother is one of the most vital, integral parts of who you are. And you and Orion really, really struggled trying to have children initially. And you had some horrific, heartbreaking challenges along the way to that. And now you're making up for lost time. You're popping them out pretty quick, I think, and not going to stop until you have enough to fill a soccer roster. But and I can only imagine over those first years, it's like every couple that gets married, everybody feels contractually obligated to say, when are you going to have children? Why haven't you had children yet? And probably things that are really hurtful and hard to hear when you're going through something like that. And then even, how many of us well-meaning people would say, you don't need to have kids, you can adopt them. And we're trying to be empathetic, and we're trying to be loving and kind. And it's probably, we're doing a horrible job at it. Give me some advice. How should people respond to their friends who are in situations like that? What would have been the best way people could support you when you're going through situations like that?
I think that every situation is very individual. So I think that listen, ask questions. I like to give an overview over the story that you quickly went through. I've been pregnant 20 times. And we got married when I was 23. And we didn't really try to get pregnant at first, because we were very just passionately building our business. We wanted that to be our core focus. So it wasn't really on our mind. We knew that we eventually wanted to become parents, but it wasn't really something that we pursued during the beginning years. But when I got to when I became 28, we kind of decided that this is the time when we're going to try and become parents. And I remember, I'm getting a little emotional talking about this, but I remember I was 30 years and I had just, because we tried for a couple of years, and I had just, gotten that positive pregnancy test, and we were like crazy scared, but obviously also very excited about this new chapter in our life. And but then 1 month went by, and then I just felt that something was not right. And I remember I was out working. I was in the north part of Norway, and I called Dorian. I said, I don't think that this is right. And in the middle of that night, I remember staying the night in one of our partners' houses. I lost a baby, and I remember laying on that bathroom floor in that house that I didn't know, crying because my dream was really just crushed. So that was the first miscarriage, and then we went through miscarriage after miscarriage. We went through IVF. At one point, we actually, and I remember this conversation vividly, Orion said, honey, we really have to understand that maybe we're not supposed to be parents. Maybe this is not our path. Maybe we can adopt. Maybe we can support children in needs. But, I just knew deep within me that we still would make it happen. But in the process of everything, we did do and did pursue all of those things. We did start, or we did support children in needs. We actually today, we together with our company, we have 1,100 pupils in India that we're supporting schooling for. We did also go through the process to become adoptive parents. So after, and there's a lot of things that you need to file, to become adoptive parents. But finally, when we got that adoption application ready, I think that all of this in combination, it just calmed us down. And together with obviously other things that we did, at one point I don't know how to explain this. I'm getting lost in my words here. When I get emotional, my English is so. But anyway, our firstborn son, Gabriel, he was our number one, or our number 14. That became our number one. And today we are blessed with also two beautiful girls, Sarah, that is 4, and Rebecca, that is 2. And I think that this whole process of going through this, my business actually taught me a lot, because in a struggle like that, you have two choices. You can either lay down and cry for the rest of your life, or you can get back up. And obviously, when you listen to that first month within the business with the 70 meetings and the 63 no's, and obviously there was a few more no's in the business as well before I got some of those yeses that eventually became really good. But I connected the dots between those things, and I just decided I'm not going to lay around crying for too long. I'm going to get back up. And I do believe that when you really have that passion within you, there is multiple ways. And I think we can connect this to the business as well, because there is always multiple ways that you can succeed. Very often we're trapped inside of this box that there is just one way you can succeed, but there is multiple ways you can succeed. Like, for instance, we started this process with applying for becoming adoptive parents, and still to this day we would have loved to adopt. I think that there is so many kids out there in the world that really need a safe home, but it's a struggle, I can tell, in Norway to do that and go through that process when you already have kids. And obviously there is other people that probably would need it more than us. But again, to connect the dots and really see that there are multiple ways you can succeed, whether it's this challenge you're struggling with or within the business. It's not just one way fits all. You have to figure out what is your way. And as long as you are open to that, there is always a way to succeed.
One of your other vital aspects of your personality is your faith. And I'm imagining your faith was really what got you through that. Can you talk about that? How important, what does your faith mean to you, and how does it impact your life every day?
Well, it's the most important in my life, actually. That was our original conversation Orion and I had when we met. I had a cross, a necklace, and he asked, "What does that mean to you?" And I said, "It means the world to me." This has really been, our building block for our whole relationship. I would say that we share that mutual belief. But early on, I felt that I got kind of a promise that we would get children. And I guess I was hanging on to that promise. Obviously, there was dark moments and times where I was questioning and being angry, both at God and the process. But I really do believe that when you have that foundation in place, you can build a lot on that foundation.
So if someone's watching or listening who is angry at God right now, who feels like, hey, this isn't what I signed up for. I thought it's all going to be peaches and cream and strawberries and rainbows and unicorns and everything is supposed to be perfect. How can you do this to me? Whatever faith or God they might believe in, what would you tell those people?
Well, I think that every one of us has a process. If you read the Bible, it wasn't necessarily very easy for Jesus either. It wasn't necessarily very easy to be Peter. So we all have to face some challenges. We all have to go through certain things, not to compare what Jesus had to go through in relation to what we have to go through to get our dream. But I think that it's important to understand that for you to grow into the person that you're intended to be, you have to go through some challenges. And that's really what everything is going to come down to, is your character and how are you willing to embrace those challenges. We all face certain challenges in our business, for instance, or in our life in general, where we obviously don't want those challenges to be there. But again, when you have conquered them and when you've gotten through that to that other side, you can advise so many other people that has been during going through the same challenges. And I think that is also one of, I think, both your missions as well as my missions today is to inspire change. And it's to inspire people to understand that they actually do have what it takes. You can come out on the other end. You can conquer your challenges if you're just willing to stay the path and continuing to renew yourself.
So here's something I wanted to chat about. U.S., we're very U.S. centric. We think the entire world revolves around us, particularly in network marketing. This was the nexus. This is where it began. We expect all the big powerhouse companies to begin in the United States and then expand around the world. You guys are the opposite of that, founded in Scandinavia. At one point, you had, I don't know what, you had like 80% of the population of Sweden or some crazy number in your team. I mean, it was, you guys done really well in Scandinavia. So you brought in Art Jonak, who, of course, people saw on the first episode of Chopping It Up. He's been your USA CEO kind of guy, saying, let me build this out like it was a startup. You're doing really well in the United States. What have you learned along the way about the differences doing business in Scandinavia versus doing business in the United States versus doing business in maybe other parts of the world like you're going to now?
Well, I think that Scandinavia, what is different about Scandinavia compared to many parts of the world is that we don't necessarily work very hierarchy. Everyone is more equal. And I think that is a very different side of the culture within the way we work. I think that one of the things that, not to talk badly about any other companies because there are so many great companies out there, but I think that one of the things that is important for specifically the corporate is to listen to the field leaders. Like, for instance, for Orion and I today, we are obviously the founders of our company, but we don't have any board position. We don't have any specific corporate position. We don't have any income from that side of the business. Obviously, we're greatly involved in a lot of the decisions, but our income is coming from the field. And basically, the reason why we started our company was because, or one of the reasons was because we wanted to create a company where the field was protected, because we felt that a lot of owners didn't necessarily have the competence within the field. They didn't necessarily understand that side of how to build the business. Same also with the corporate. So what we've tried to at least integrate in our community is a lot of leader meetings where corporate and the main leaders are continuing to talk on a weekly basis and interact with ideas, ensuring that everyone is understanding each other, everyone is respecting each other. And I think that culture is really blooming and bearing fruits, because I think sometimes there is a lot of misunderstandings sometimes it's like two divisions, the corporate and the field, right? And the communication between, I think, is extraordinarily important to understand the different sides of the business. Very often the field doesn't really understand different things that corporate has to deal with. And it's important sometimes to go into the details and talk about, why do we make certain decisions? Why doesn't this work out, for instance, to do so-and-so in the comp plan, or to decrease the price on that product? You have to be open, and that open communication, I think, is really, really vital. Now, when it comes to obviously working with different cultures, this is something that I'm struggling with every single day. Now we have business in so many countries, and every day I need to think about, how do I communicate with this person? How is this person thinking? And that's obviously also one of the beauties with our business, is that you have you're on a journey of continuous improvement.
Yeah, for me, this is the bane of my existence right now, and probably has been for more than a decade, is working internationally with languages and translators. It's just for the events, particularly the live events. It's to the point now where you put together an event, and this can be a team event. I'm not talking about a company convention. I'm talking about an event for my team. And we can be putting together the event and say, okay, we need $150,000 for the interpreter setup, the cabins, the interpreters, the mics, the headsets, the whatever. I did an event in Lima, Peru, with 11,000 people. And there was not 11,000 headsets in the country of Peru. It's just Peru, for people who don't know, is still a third world country. Lima is one of the most magical cities in the world. I love Lima. I'm in love with at least 1,000 people who live in Lima. It's a joy to my heart every time I go there. And you can go outside of Lima 10 miles and there are people who do not have electricity or drinking water all over the country. So I come in, the big rock star presenter, and we got 11,000 people in a venue, and we need 11. There isn't even 11,000 headsets there. So we ended up doing subtitles on the screen, you know, that they were literally typing by hand as simultaneous as I'm speaking, putting that up on these big mag screens, which we have done, which isn't the ideal thing. But at least it's only one language. Everyone in the room spoke Spanish. There's no, at that point in my life, I have done some speeches in Spanish since then. At that point, there was no way I was prepared to do that. But like, you know, I remember when I'm creating your first Magalog and some of the materials we did, you'd be like, hey, Randy, we need this here because we have 17 different languages we need to translate this into. And that's, you know, the bane of, I think, for every field leader now. The internet has made it necessary to build worldwide. It's almost impossible today to attract the high-level leaders if you're just in one country, no matter what the country is. Even if it's a huge country like Brazil or United States or whatever, it's even, you know, and you can start and you could be very successful. So I don't want anyone who's watching or listening thinking, oh, well, my company is only in this country, I could never make it. No, you can make it amazing there. But at some point, the pressure is going to come in and they're going to say, hey, my sister lives in this country and I went to school in that country and I know people in this country and, you know, I'm getting calls from this country and they want to sign up and how do we do it? And we all get forced into creating these international organizations, and just the interpreters and the translation and the language stuff. And it's really a challenge, right?
It's a huge challenge. And I don't think that when you're out building in the field, you don't necessarily always think about how much work actually goes into opening a market. Like if you're going to do it the right way, which I hope that most countries or most companies are aiming to, there is just a ton of points that you have to check off. There is so many licenses. There is so many different things that you have to really pay close attention to. And there is, I can tell that that's one of our biggest challenges every single year. We're constantly expanding. To this year, we're opening probably 4 new countries. But that's it's a hassle. But then as you speak about the languages, because if you're going to provide the right system, if you're going to provide people with the material, you have to also translate the material. And talking about the events, normally we usually have a translation to 12 to 15 languages, and then usually some team leaders are organizing some other translations for Zoom. So it's a major challenge. But one of the things that is really positive as we speak is that technology is improving, both when it comes to translation, like in writing. Obviously that is improving tremendously, even though you still have to have copy, because certain things won't necessarily sound the same if you just translate it directly from English to, for instance, Norwegian. It can just sound really, really crazy. But also there is now systems and apps that are at least in the process of being better and better, that hopefully can help us out as we are expanding. So we're constantly in the search for the right system there. So if people have advice, they can please come to us. We do have some good systems as we speak, but you know, this is one of our greatest challenges, but also biggest opportunities.
Yeah, I went to, the first time I went to Turkey, so I speak English. I can get by in Spanish. I can even get by a little in French. The guy with me speaks Hebrew, Russian, German, and something else. And we went out to eat in Istanbul and realized none of those languages does a thing for us in Istanbul. They speak Turkish. The taxi drivers speak Turkish. If you don't have a piece of paper with the name of your hotel and the address of your hotel in Turkish, you will never be seen again, because there's no way you can explain to that taxi driver, hey, I'm staying at the, JW Marriott on the river. Forget it. It's really... it's amazing. So and of course, the other side of that is every street you look at in Turkey, you believe you're either in an Indiana Jones movie or a James Bond movie or a Mission Impossible movie, because it's just breathtaking. The culture, the history, the Asian side and the Euro side. And I was staying right on the river in the middle. And I mean, it's, there's a lot of blessings that go with those challenges as well. And that's certainly one of the great benefits of our profession is getting exposed to all that culture and people.
Oh yeah, it's really broadening, or making our perspective broader. But still, I also want to emphasize what you said, that you don't necessarily need to build in a different country to become successful. And I think sometimes people fall into the trap of thinking that, because we promote it and expansion is fun and all of that. But I think that it's important to not overlook the opportunity that you have right in front of you, your neighbor or the parent of your son's friend, or whoever. Like the opportunity is right around us. And I think that the best way to actually expand your business, if your company is offering that opportunity, is to do it organically, to build with the contacts that you have, and then expand from there. It actually reminds me about a story with one of our leaders, Vibeke, that has been with us now for a couple of years. And when she started, she's from the mid part of Norway. She had some background from direct selling, but at this point, she felt that she had just put it, on the hold. She didn't want to do that anymore. So she had this leader job, 4 kids, a husband, quite busy life, a lot of things to juggle. And in many people's eyes, I think that for looking in, it was her dream. It was like the dream reality. But she got started, and the reason why she got started was because she always had this dream of building an international business. And she had been studying to become a physiotherapist in Germany. So her thought was that I want to go to Germany. But as she started the process, it didn't really work out so well. A lot of people that she knew back then, they had moved, and she was like struggling for so long. And finally, I remember, well, we had this conversation, and she said, I just need to focus on the people that I have in my local community. Hopefully, it's going to lead me one day to where I really want. And fascinatingly enough, some months later, she meets a 70-year-old doctor in her hometown that leads her into a prospect in Germany, to another prospect in Germany, to another prospect in Germany. And she just decides, to adopt these people as her own, follow up, and do all of the different things that is needed, to grow that. And through that line, again, working in the depth, like we talked about, Germany is actually today our #1 market. And it is thriving and it is growing so fast. So I think that it's important to really not go over the pond, work at what you have, and then decide to grow from there, because you do have, and everyone have, amazing potential within their own contact base. So I just wanted to make a point of that so that it's not misunderstood from the people listening in.
Yeah, because when I'm talking about that pressure, I'm talking about the pressure on the really top leaders, and more particularly, specifically, the pressure on companies to expand. Because I can testify, if you're one of the leaders who opens a country, any country, for any company, if you're one of the leaders who makes it happen, you will become wealthy. The first company I worked, which was where I actually built something and had some experience and some success, I saw the lady who opened Canada, driving around a Rolls Royce, just became $1 million earner, a homemaker. We opened up Taiwan. There was a guy who came to this first meeting on a bicycle. He didn't have a car. He built $1 million income building in Taiwan. Later, as a consultant, I opened up Slovenia, Croatia, Macedonia, many countries. So, some of those were the first time. And the people who became the leaders who made that happen, they became wealthy. A country like Slovenia at that time, I don't even know what it is today, but at that time, I think the population was like 2 million people. And that's the Miami metro area is 2 million people. So even if you're one of the leaders who makes the Miami metro area, puts it on the map, okay, yeah, you're not going to rival Jeff Bezos or Oprah, but you could be making $35,000 a month. You could be making 75,000 euros a month. And trust me, you can get by on $35,000 a month. I know it's hard. I know you got to scrimp. I know you got to clip a lot of coupons and look for early bird specials and discounts. But trust me, you can get by on $35,000 or euros a month. And you can do that just by opening one market and being one. You can't just say, okay, this company is, I live in Belgium and ABC company is coming to Belgium and I'm going to join. So that means I'm going to be a millionaire or $1 million producer. No, but it does mean if you apply yourself and you become one of the people, there's going to be every scenario like that. If it's Chicago, Illinois, or the Netherlands, there's going to be 3 to 5 people who are going to create transformational, generational wealth, what I call legacy positions, where you create an ongoing legacy, where you create an income that you could will to your children and grandchildren. You can create an engine of residual income, of passive residual income. That is a legacy that you can leave behind, whether it's for your children or your grandchildren or some cause that is near and dear to your heart. It really, that's the magic of what we offer. I don't know. So what do you have on any other points on your list, stuff that you want to talk about?
There is tons of things that we could talk about. I think that very often a lot of people believe that there is so much that needs to, or it's easy to believe that there is so much that needs to be done to achieve, what you aspire. But a lot, and obviously this has been said before, but I believe that you're one person away. You're one person away. And sometimes, obviously, we build our business through developing the right habits, doing the small things again and again and again that eventually becomes big. But I also do believe that this is a season where you can really decide to relaunch your business because of everything going on going on in the world around us. And I really do believe that you can do incredible things in 90 to 120 days. And obviously, like my husband, he wrote this book, 90 Days to Win, many years ago. And we have, throughout our career, probably had 1 to 2 90-day runs every single year, where we've uppered the tempo, where we have recruited more, either personally or in the depth of a specific organization, and where we've decided to really relaunch kind of our business. And I think that this is a good timing for that. I think that if you also, Randy, if you look at the different organizations that you've built over all of these years so successfully, you could probably pinpoint back to certain specific seasons of your life and say that if I didn't do what I then did during this specific 90 days, I probably wouldn't have accomplished this XYZ goal. Now, one of the things that we have implemented that maybe some other also can find beneficial to do themselves as well is that we do 90-day runs in terms of groups. Because, and this was something that I started many years ago, because obviously we were doing this, but then I saw that when we started to do, or when we tried to duplicate it, a lot of people didn't necessarily succeed as well with it. Some people that was very ambitious themselves, that had the initial drive, that had the hunger, obviously would do the same. But then there was a lot of people that was kind of like, they started well, but then they stopped after like 30 days or 40 days because they didn't really get the traction. So one of the things that really we have managed to duplicate well in our team is what we define as 90-day groups, where you collect a group of maybe 7, 9 people. You have a host, a leader of the group, a mentor that is educating, and that is holding, where everyone is kind of like holding each other accountable. And I think how it actually started was one of our leaders, again, many years ago, that came to me after a conference and said, I really need help. I really want to relaunch my business after this conference. I'm so excited, but I don't know where to start. But I've selected these people. How can we make this happen? And I remember we started in end of July, and we had this kind of prep meeting for what was going to go on. And we talked about people's goals, making an attractive 90-day goals. And we talked about making a plan and defining, within the group, who are you going to help? Who are you going to lift? What's going to be your specific action points? And then everyone was so excited in August. And, but August really didn't go so well, right? Because it was the first month. But then we were meeting every single week. We had this education, everyone was sharing. And then what happened was that month 2 in September, things really started to take off. Not everyone was getting a breakthrough. There was like one person, actually the leader that came to me, he got his initial breakthrough because suddenly things were actually starting to pay off. And then month 3, some other people in the group really got some incredible results through it as well. And after that initial kind of tryout, we started to duplicate kind of like a system on it. And we've really seen that when you collect people in groups, and probably a lot of people listening in are probably doing something similar, but I think that what we've really find has been working efficiently with this is that obviously when you have people around you that are making you accountable, something is happening. It's not always the education that does it, but it's how you communicate what are you supposed to do. And when you say that publicly in front of other people, and maybe you also get some nuggets from what's been happening the last week, in their business, what didn't work, what worked out, it's incredible how actually people can help each other. And I think that this is an important thing to really get, that some of you that are listening in that maybe feel a little stuck where you are, you're just one person away, or you're just like 90 days away from your really breakthrough. And there is a lot of people, even in your team, even in your downline today, that if by collectively putting a plan together, deciding to do something together, holding each other accountable, you can really create incredible results. So I think that this is a good timing to really push the pedal to really relaunch your business. I think that 2023 is going to be a very good year for our profession. But I think that it's also important that each and every leader see the opportunity. It is a shaky world, and there is obviously and my heart goes out to all of the people that are in a company that is today struggling. But again, use the opportunity to really create something that will last for a lifetime. Like you say, Randy, this is a legacy business, and it's really transformed my life. And it's, I'm a result of this business. I don't know. Obviously, I had this path. I thought I had a good path going on, with studying law and all of that. But I'm so happy that I chose this vehicle, because in the end, I think that the happiness that is involved in being around people like yourself, people that are growing, people that are uplifting each other, and that are constantly, pushing you to think bigger, it's a better life.
Did you ever finish law school?
I didn't. 2 years in, I decided that I totally had fallen in love with this profession and the people and the personal development, and really what I really enjoyed the most, even though I didn't have that breakthrough results very quickly in my business, it came like year 3 or so. What I really enjoyed was to see that I felt that I was growing, and I got exposed to a new way of thinking. I did have that a little bit with me also from the past. I don't know if we've been chatting about that, but when I was, I think 12, I found this book, Think and Grow Rich, in my grandpa's bookshelf. So that was actually my first exposure kind of to personal development. And even though I didn't necessarily know English fluently, because it was in English at the time, it kind of gave me some ideas. But I really fell in love with the development of or the development that you had to go through as a person in this profession. And I don't believe that there is any other business today that are offering that the way we can do.
Well, you are certainly fluent in English today. What languages do you speak, and what tips would you give people to learn a different language?
Well, I guess mostly I speak Norwegian and English. I do speak Swedish. I do, but Swedish is very similar to Norwegian. I do know a little bit of German, but I wouldn't necessarily hold a speech there. I should be very careful talking about that I know German, because then I'm going to get a lot of requests. You have to speak German the next time. No, I'm not going to speak German. I need to practice that. I did learn. I had some years, where I learned French in school, but French is not something that I would understand very much today. But I think that just throwing yourself out there and practice is really the key. I can tell you that it's not that many years ago, Randy, that I gave my first speech in English. I think it was back in 2006, something like that. And I got my brother that was studying in England at the time to translate my Norwegian talk into English. And I was so nervous. I memorized basically every single word on those 4 papers. It was crazy. But I think that you really have to just throw yourself out there. You have to be willing to look bad to be good. Very similar to what we do in our business.
Another thing I had on a point to ask you about is how do you identify a potential leader in your team? So you're looking over the group and you're going around and you're starting to meet people on lower levels, build in depth. What jumps out at you where you say, that person has got it? I need to go help nurture them along.
Hunger. And 100%, I would say hunger. And I think that everything falls and rises on a person's character. And I always go back. Actually, one of the best books that I've read about leadership, Randy, is Orrin Woodward and Chris Brady's book, Launching a Leadership Revolution. And in that book, they talk about the trilateral leadership ledger, where they basically say that you should score yourself from 0 to 10 on on character, task, and relationship. And the way they define character, and I think John Maxwell have something similar that he talks about in some of his books as well. But character, they define as someone's hunger, someone's how honorable you are, how willing you are to be shaped, to be formed, to change, and then your honorability. How honorable are you? Your integrity. And I think that you can work on a lot of areas of your life, but again, everything falls and rises on a person's character. I would definitely say that hunger is the #1 thing for me. And then after that, I would definitely also mention how honorable your integrity, and also how willing you are to, go through that transformation to become the person that you want to be.
Yeah, I love it. I have like one more point I want to ask you about, but you got anything else on your list that you want to throw into the ring?
Well, yeah, I have a lot of different things here, but I let you run the show, Randy.
I don't run this show. This show runs itself. It's wherever we want to go with it. So you got any other burning issue, rant, or rage?
If we talk about hunger, it really starts with your vision. And we constantly hear that you have to know your why, right? You have to find that burning desire, that one thing that is giving you the power to do whatever you need to do. And I think that for a lot of people, it's easy to be confused here, because a lot of people believe that it's just one thing. I believe that there is a multiple things. When I got started, there was my first initial thing was that I wanted to earn, or my big hairy goal was that I wanted to earn 5,000 euros a month. Then I felt I would be set for life.
Right.
But as I started to get to or understand, you know, what was really possible here, there was a lot of things that I got on my goal list. And I think that writing down your goals, deciding on what is the most important. I'm actually, just last year, I was going through like a new process of doing that myself, because first time I did that was in 2002. And I had heard it many times said, you know, you have to write down your goals. And I don't remember exactly who said it, but do write down, set aside like 30 minutes every day for 30 days and brainstorm all of the different things that you want. And I did that, and I put a time frame behind it. I said like 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years. And I did as a lot of people, I think, do. I put that stack of papers in a drawer. And then when I we were moving from our apartment to our first house, I was packing down my office, and I suddenly was, you know, discovering these goals again, which I was kind of like very surprised or interested now to look a little bit deeper in, and it really caught my attention because looking at those goals, it was like 5 years. I think now I was approaching the 5-year deadline as I was looking at it, but I had achieved like 80% of the different things that I had put 1 year behind, about 70% of the different things that I had put 3 years behind. And one of the targets that was actually on the list for my 5-year deadline was a house. And I was describing the house in details with the number of bedrooms and the roof terrace and the gym and the apartment that we could rent out, and, you know, the view over the fjords of Oslo. And I even had like a price tag behind it. And to make a long story short, we had bought this really not nice house on the location that we wanted. Actually, Orion, he's always been this visionary. So he actually, when we were looking at it, he found this ladder and he said, honey, let's climb up on the roof. So we were both sitting on the roof, and he said, imagine how this is going to be, honey. You know, when we were building this roof terrace, it's going to be magnificent. So he sold me on it. And wow. We did this process, you know, of all of it. Long story short, when we finished it, at first, when the evaluator came, he gave us one price on the house, and it was $1 million in difference, Norwegian, so 100,000 in difference from what I had on my paper. So I said, honey, we have to finish the house. We had to finish the outside of all of it. Again, when he came back, it was the exact price that I had written down. Now, the 10-year goals, it was crazy. So many different things happening. You know, we made a new 10-year plan, and a lot of different things happening there. Now I'm in the process, or last year I was in the process of brainstorming a lot of goals again. And I just find that this is one of the things that is easy to overlook. We talk about it a lot, but it's easy to overlook because it's something magical when the pen meets the paper. And when you truly find those things that you want to achieve, you become unstoppable. And obviously now I talked about a lot of material things or different things, you know, when it comes to the house. I think that what really is probably my core motivation today is to make a difference. There is obviously a lot of things on the other goal list. We have a big dream board, but the meaning and the lives that we have the opportunity to transform through this profession, through offering an opportunity where people can start with 2 empty hands and really build something of significance. That is really what is inspiring me the most today. And it's really those stories that keeps us moving. And you mentioned the 1 million customer targets. We do have bigger targets than that. For 2050, we're actually aiming for 100 million customers.
I
So
love
we're
it.
going to be in this for a long run.
I love it. Well, this seems like a perfect, logical place to tie this up. You certainly are making a difference. So you can count that as one of your checked off goals on your list already, because you are doing an incredible job inspiring and empowering people all over the planet. So thank you for that. Thank you for being you. And thanks so much for making it the time to have this conversation. They're really making a difference for people. Like I said, my phone blows up every week by Wednesday night. Usually we put the new show live every Wednesday morning, Eastern time. And by Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening, my phone is just blowing up. People and they all, most of them know the speaker. Like they know Daniel for 5 years, or they've known Art for 15 years, or they've known Flacco for 10 years, or they know who Bricia or Ann Feinstein or whoever. And they're like, oh my God, that story, when Ann told her story about this, I never knew that about her. That, oh my God, I'm going through that exact same situation in my business right now. I thought I was the only person in the world who ever went through that. And I mean, it's really making a difference. So you and Orion both, I'm so blessed you guys are in my life. Now the whole world is blessed that you've both been on the show. For you guys watching, remember, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We now put it up on podcasts. We're on Apple, Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. So for you guys who like me, I love these shows because I just do them on the cardio. I put in my headset and I can, so it's a 2, 3, 4 hour show. I eat it up because now I know I got my cardio covered for the whole week, So thank you. Any last words before we go?
I just again want to thank you, Randy, for being who you are and for everything that you are doing for our profession. You truly are a legend in our profession, and how you constantly sow into people's lives. It's just making a huge difference. And I don't know if you really know how big of a difference that it is truly making for people. But people need people like yourself in their lives. And I just want to one more time thank you for everything that you do.
All right, everybody watching, my story, struggling for 5 years. Now Hilde's story. 70 presentations, 7 signups, 3 drop out right away. The 4 are no longer with us, but she has built an organization which is transforming the life of tens of thousands of people all over the world. And you can too. Thanks everybody for watching. Peace, love, and unicorns.